Hello, young friends. Good morning. This is the third part of our lecture series on field methods for folklore research. In the last part, we were discussing some important points regarding the pre planning, planning for a bigger plan, and making a field plan depending upon the each subjects like riddles, proverbs, whether performances or ritual processes, depending upon these kind of varied kinds of subjects, how to plan the field work and preparing a calendar. And after preparation of the calendar, making clear cut plans to go to the place of performances or the place of artists to be interviewed. All these points we discussed in our early session. Today we are going to discuss some more important points regarding planning and finalizing the subject and interview techniques and meeting with the people in various areas and how to prepare a questionnaire and how to use that questionnaire. All these important points we'll discuss. At first, these lectures, the lecture series, these are intended to meet the needs of research scholars who are working for PhD in folklore departments or with folklore subjects in various language departments in various universities within India. So these lectures are not for seniors or senior researchers who have already experience with the field context. These are not for them. And we discussed about the research planning. According to the planning, we have to remember some important points. Before that, we have to remember one more important point, that any PhD, maybe folklore or maybe literature, maybe language, whatever it may be, any PhD work, it should be remembered that that work is a joint work of two persons. One person is the candidate, PhD candidate. The other person is the supervisor itself. And a beginner researcher and an experienced researcher or a professor work together and produce a PhD. Any PhD work is not a single person's work. It should be remembered that it's a joint work of a professor or a supervisor and the research candidate. It's a joint work of these two persons. It should be remembered. As such, any research scholar who is working for PhD in a department in any university should remember that he must be in consultation with his supervisor always. At any given point, he must be in contact with his supervisor. Before making plan of fieldwork plan also, he or she has to have a consultation with the supervisor to take his experience in the field, even in planning a calendar and depending upon the seasons of the ritual, seasons of the performances, and a fixed pattern, fixed date ritual processes will be there, fixed date performances will be there, and we don't have any other chance. Then we have to take note of that particular date and we must be there in the field at that date. So these fixed dates we should not forget it. And we have to make a red mark in our ritual calendar in the sense that fieldwork calendar. We have to make a point. And we should attend to that one. While making plans, so the contacts in the field, the contacts of your supervisor will also be very helpful to you. and he knows many people within that area of research. He may not, because he is the senior person by age, and he is the senior person by knowledge and by teaching, by all means. He is the senior persons to you. To you means to researchers. Then you need to take the advice and expertise of your supervisor before making a plan for your field calendar, for your field work, actually field documentation. That's very important. And this should be in mind, that your supervisor need to know all the times about your field work plans, and you must take his expertise into your consideration and take note of his suggestions. And one more important point we made on our earlier part, that we should remember that in our attitude, it should be remembered in our attitude that we are going to field to learn something from the experts, to learn something from the folk artists, folk performers. And we have to keep it in mind that we are students in the fieldwork context. You may be a lecturer, you may be an associate professor, you may be a professor, and you may be doing for a field, you may be doing for a PhD, and already might be an assistant professor or associate professor in some context, may be working for part-time PhD in a university. Then you may feel that you are well educated, you are holding a MA degree, MPhil degree, and a lot of experience in teaching, and you may know many languages. And the persons who are in the field situation, in the field context, may be uneducated or may be illiterate or pre-literate. All such kind of attitudes within your mind, if at all they are there in your mind. We have to keep all these egos and whatever it may be there at our home, at our box. And we should go to the field with an idea that I'm a student, I'm going to the field to learn something, to know something, some knowledge which I didn't have. It should be always remembered. So this point already we have discussed. Then we talked about the seasons of performances, seasons of rituals, and many a time rituals and performances cannot be separated. Many of the performances are part of certain rituals. That is there. And then we have to remember that. We have to remember a performer gives you a hint that when should we open our questions, when should we open our mouth to interact with him. We have to notice that. In our field situations. And your contacts, when you are making calendar, you make some contact numbers, some names of some contact persons which are suggested by your guide, or some of your friends may suggest that. Let us say if you are going to some Karimnagar district or Khammam district or some other district or some other part of the country, there you may know some people in the field, or your friends may know some people there, or your friends may be there, or friends of your supervisor may be there in that field area. So it is better to contact them before you leave to that place. And nowadays the meteorological department's announcements and their notices to general public, we should take them into consideration, that if you are going to do some field work with the Tappetagudlu, which are there in Srikakulam district, and Srikakulam district is the coastal district, and some of the villages where the Tappetagudlu performers are there, they are the coastal villages, they are on the border of the sea, the seashore, they are on the seashore. Then we must be taking care that whether the atmosphere in those days will cooperate to your work or not. So find out, it's also needed to find out the weather reports before we set out for the field. That is also needed in this kind of in our country. Of course it is needed in any other country also, but here it is essential. And in my experience, actually I started my fieldwork expedition in 1984. In 1984 I worked in Andhra Pradesh Sahitya Academy as a field assistant for 1 year. Then Professor Chekur Ramarao, who is popularly known as Chera, he was my director. In the research project, he was my director, and he was my guru, and he is my intimate person as a mentor. And he cautioned me, he suggested me that go to any village, better to meet some teachers who are there in that particular village. He told me that these teachers, they are well acquainted with the information and persons of that particular village. They may be working in that particular village and they are educated. And in many villages, teachers are more educated than any other person in that particular village. So directly, if you go to a folk performer, so a folk artist, if you say that your purpose, that I am doing for research for PhD, or I am working for a research project, and I need this kind of information, if I need this kind of documentation, I need to document some of your performances. If you say so to that people, they might not understand your need. They may suspect you also, and they may not cooperate properly to you, to your work. Then what to do? If you consult some teachers within that village, the teachers will help you, and they can be a bridge between you and that villagers or that particular performers. Because the performers are the persons who are at the informants who are there in that particular village. They know this teacher and they believe him, they believe their word. And if they say something about your research work to that villagers, to the performers, they can understand that, oh, our person, our teacher, he is explaining what is the need, and if I give my performance to this researcher, or if I say something to this researcher, there will not be any harm to me, and they can ascertain this feeling within themselves so that they can help you. So teachers in those villages will be very helpful to you. So before meeting any people in that particular village, go to some teachers within that village. There, in most of the villages, in almost all villages, at least a primary school is there. In my experience also, wherever I go, at first I try to meet some teachers who are working there and who are living there, and I took many times the help of these teachers. They helped me a lot, and they respect you. When you are going from a university as a research scholar or as a faculty member to a village, when a teacher finds you, and he feels very happy that some more educated person came from a university to this village, it is better to help him. Such kind of feeling they will have, and they will help you. That it should be, we should remember this important point also. That will be helpful to you. And then what else? What is the difference between field work in other countries and field work in India? Yes, any person may have a question that field work is field work, and we have to go to the field, we have to meet the performers, we have to meet the various kind of artists, general public, and we interview them, we get some information from them, we document something. And then what is the difference between country to country? Some of researchers, they may raise this question. What is the difference between working in country to country? I saw in some other countries where all folk performances are totally disappeared. But in India, particularly in Telugu states or any other states within India, all states are very rich for folk performances. They are treasure troves for various kinds of performing traditions. Even today, many folk performances in each language area very vibrant. They are very much alive. They are giving entertainment. They are giving religious needs. They are meeting the religious needs, giving the entertainment, and officiating individual rituals at home. So, folk traditions are very vibrant, very strong, and alive in India, in Indian context. In case of other countries like Finland, Britain, Canada, Australia, America, in many countries, various kinds of folk performances are totally disappeared. Some tribal areas, their traditional practices are there. I saw in Finland, no rune singer is ever alive. Totally all rune singers are disappeared. No more rune singer is there. Professor Luri Hanko, at first, who tried to do some research on their national epic Kalevala, he thought how a great epic, a oral epic is produced, created, how folk singers perform a folk epic alive in a particular social context, to whom they perform, why they perform, when they perform. So what is the actual relation between the structure of the epic, the sequence of the theme, and the narrator's social background, and the context? How in that particular context, how a folk epic, how a folk myth is created. He wanted to know that. But he didn't have that chance. He didn't have that opportunity, because no rune singers used to sing this Kalevala, but no rune singer was alive. Then somebody suggested him that go to India. There all epic performances are alive. They are available. And if you come across to listen to a folk epic, long folk epic in a context from a folk performer, you can understand how your Kalevala must have been performed, to whom it was performed. So this experience may be helpful to him. Somebody suggested to Professor Luri Hanko. Then he came to India. He went to Karnataka, and he met in those days, some experienced folklorists, folk promoters. He met Professor Haridas Bhatt. He met him and asked him to help him. And Professor Haridas Bhatt suggested him to take up a research project on their Siri epic. Siri epic, which is available even today, which is alive in the area of Tulunadu. They did some great research work on this Siri epic, which is there in Tulunadu. That was a joint work of Luri Hanko, Haridas Bhatt, and Professor. Then one Kannada professor is there. He was the Vice Chancellor of Kannada University also. I just recollect his. I'll tell him that Vivek Rai, Professor Vivek Rai. These three scholars, and with the help of two other scholars, Ashok and some other scholars also worked in this research project. So when in many countries, when the long national epics, oral epics, their performance tradition is no more at all, then such kind of researchers are looking at Indian context. But working there in those countries and working in India is entirely different. Why fieldwork context in India is entirely different? We have to know the answer to this question. Why? The answer is Indian social fabric is structured with caste. So the issue of caste is not there in other countries. It is there only in India. Then how it affects your fieldwork? Yes, it has a great barrier on your fieldwork. Unless you know the caste fabrication in a village, unless you know the relation of your research project, the caste, you cannot work on that research work. It is highly difficult. It's not difficult, it is impossible to work without knowing the caste element in your fieldwork situation. Because all folk performers belong to one particular caste. Most of the folk performing traditions belong to each concerned caste. This is the tradition in India. And most of the folk performers and their performance traditions are dependent to some other castes. Many folk performance traditions, they are intended to perform only to some social groups, some castes. They are not open to all general public. That's why all folk performances which are available in India are two kinds. Basically two kinds. One is a folk performance is for general, and some folk performances are not for general. Only they are intended to some particular castes. They are traditionally performed to a caste. So, unless you understand this nature of relation between caste and the performer, and caste and the viewers, the audience, this is very important. We must understand this very important relation. Otherwise, we cannot work there. I'll give you some examples. Yakshagana is there. Yakshagana in Karnataka it is there, in Andhra Pradesh it is there. Yakshagana of Karnataka and Yakshagana of Andhra Pradesh or Telangana, they are different. Different in styles, different in myths, different in themes, different in style and performance context, all these things. In Andhra Pradesh, two kinds of Yakshaganas are there. In Telangana, two kinds of Yakshaganas are there. One is Chindu Yakshaganam and is Telangana Yakshaganam. It is itself called Telangana Yakshaganam. And there is another kind of Yakshaganam that is called Chirutala Yakshaganam. Chirutala Yakshaganam, a group of Chirutala Yakshaganam is composed by performers from many castes. And the Yakshagana story is performed by performing a Chiruta Bhajana. And they form into a circle. They perform a song with the help of Bhajana style. And the entire story is performed with this kind of Yakshaganam style. And the other kind of Telangana Yakshaganam style is, it is an Yakshaganam performance for everybody. And the artist may be coming from any caste within that village. Or some artists may come from other villages also. It is there. But there is another kind of Yakshaganam that is called Chindu Yakshaganam. This Chindu Yakshaganam, the artists in the Chindu Yakshaganam are coming from Madiga caste, and there is one subcaste to Madigas that is called Chindollu, Sindollu. Chindu is the name of that particular art form. The people who perform this Chindu art form, they are called Chindollu, Sindollu also. This is one caste. And primarily the Chindollu, Sindollu, they perform to their what should I say? To their Ejaman. It is the technical word that is used in the sociology, in Indian sociology, that Ejamans are the benefactors, the benefacting class, the benefacting caste, or patronizing caste. These are there are some patronizing castes and there are some dependent castes. Dependent performing castes are there. So this Chindu Yakshaganam is performed by Chindollu. Chindollu are a dependent performing caste to Madigas. Madigas are the benefactors and they are patronizing caste. And generally, primarily, this art form is only for their lords, only for their ejmons. It's not for general public. But nowadays, the Chindu Yakshaganam can be patronized, can be by any other caste, by any general public. It can be there in a village for general public. But basically, primarily, it is performed in their Madiga Godams, their hamlets. Similarly, many other kinds of performances are intended to some particular castes. Let us say, I'll give you one example, that is, Vishwakarma community is there in many other states within India. Similar way, Vishwakarma community is there Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So Vishwakarma community in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh having one dependent performing caste that is called Runjalu. Runja is the name of the instrument. The people, the performers who play that Runja instrument are called Runjas. Runjalu, Runjavallu, Runjollu. These are the expressions for that social group. Then this Runja performance is intended only to Vishwakarma community. They won't perform to any other caste people. They never go to the families or they never go to the audience of any other caste in a particular village. But in some governmental functions, in some seminars, a Runja performer may be invited. He may be asked to perform on a stage. Then it is a general performance. But generally it won't happen. A village people, a village community never invite a Runja person to give a performance to that public. General public in that particular village. No such village invites a Runja performer, and there may be a general performance to the village. There may not be such kind of performances. But there may be some general functions organized by the government or governmental institutions. That's it. But primarily they are intended. Their benefactors, their patronizers are only Vishwakarmas. There are 60 such kind of performing castes still alive in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana. Then a researcher who wants to work on this kind of Chindu Yakshaganam or this kind of Runja performance or any other performance which is intended to a particular caste, the researcher must know that who are the performing caste of his performance, where he wants to work, where he wants to document. Then the researcher must be in a great knowledge of this social element, that who are performing this performance tradition, to whom it belongs, which caste is performing, and which casting is performing to which other caste, whether it is a general public performance or it is an exclusive audience. This particular knowledge must be very important, and the researcher should remember that the performance is not for general audience, it's only for them. And then how the narrative or the myth is structured, in what way it is structured, whether the narrative is going to perform in a family ritual or an outside ritual, outside performance for a community of a village or for general village, it should be remembered. That is why, and in India, there is a ladder structured caste hierarchy, and we should remember from Brahmins to the Dalit communities. Or I don't want to say that some castes are high or some castes are middle or some castes are low. We as researchers, we never do this kind of classification. We are no way interested to make value judgments between caste and caste, and we never say that this particular caste is high and this particular caste is not high, and this particular caste is low and this particular caste is much lower, and this particular caste is the erstwhile untouchable. We never say that. We never make any kind of value judgments. We never do that. But we should keep it in mind that There are attributed values within a village, within a community, within a town, or also there are some attributed values attributed by general public that this caste is high, this caste is dominant caste, this caste persons are landowning people. Most of these caste people are in government in high positions. These are professional castes. These are middle level castes. These are lower castes. These are performing castes. Even by the governmental classification, there are some backward classes. There are some open category castes. There are some scheduled castes. There are some scheduled tribes. And most backward classes. Such kind of a government classification is itself there. Then we should remember that when we are going to a village, when we are working on a particular community, we must have a knowledge that where this particular caste stands in the ladder, stands in the hierarchy. Even you know that this particular caste is attributed with the lower value or higher value or upper value. Even you find that that means the researcher must be very careful that I am going to deal with this particular community. Whatever may be the community, whatever may be the social values are attributed to that community, whatever may be there, but a researcher gives equal value to each person, equal respect to each person, each group, each subcaste, and each performance. So the upper caste, the so-called upper caste people may just look down towards a performance which are performed by some lower castes. They say that they never care to listen to them. They never do that. They never do that. But still, we never show our attitude towards any kind of performance. We never say any value judgment when we are working with the persons that they should not feel that we are looking down that particular performance, or we are giving more importance to a particular community or to a particular performance direction. We never differentiate such things. Never do that. Never do that. A Ramayana is performed by a leather puppet performer. A Ramayana is performed by Chindu Yakshaganam, which is performed by the so-called erstwhile untouchable community. And similarly, a Ramayana is performed in a temple by a Brahmin narrator. Whatever it may be, all are one and the same to the researcher. We have to give that kind of picture to any other informant that we are not interested in giving values to each group. We are no way we are connected to this kind of thing. But we must keep it in mind that this is the caste which has a certain level in the ladder, in the hierarchy, in the society. There are some attributed values on this particular community, on this particular caste, on this particular performance. We must keep it in mind. Then we have to observe that who are attending in that performance and what kind of comments they are making towards the performance, and what is affecting the performance, what kind of reactions from the audience are affecting the performance. These detailed planning, these detailed kind of observation should be there while documentation. But before documentation itself, before approaching the communities, we must have a first-hand knowledge of caste structure in any village where we are going to do some documentation, do some field work. This is very important, and we must remember that we are going to work among some castes. So this is the primary and very important difference between the fieldwork situations in India and fieldwork context in other countries. In other countries, we don't have this problem. We don't have this kind of social structure which comes across you in your field context. So your research work is planned according to the social structure of that particular village. So to whom you are going to contact at first, this is very important. And when you go to some village, when you meet some artists, because of their living condition in the villages, they may be very submissive. There are some very submissive. And sometimes some of the communities, they may not ready to cooperate with you, to talk to you. And we must motivate them. To talk to you. So I must be able to convey in a proper way what is my need, what I am going to learn from you, what I am going to document, and with his or her permission. This is important. And when we are going to document some literary genres from various communities, it depends upon the subject of the researcher. And if the subject of the researcher is only on folk literature, and folk literature of any community within that village, that scheme will be different. That fieldwork scheme will be different. When the researchers are working on rituals, and some rituals are closely associated with various castes. Various castes participate in each ritual. And in that particular folk ritual, some castes stand somewhere, some castes officiate the ritual, and some castes obey the officiation of the officiators. Sometimes the general audience are high castes, and sometimes the ritual officiators belong to lower castes. Then what happens? Then how the hierarchy is inverted, and a upper caste person to go to a lower caste person who is at the ritual officiating condition, and he has to bow his head to the lower caste person. How the social roles are reversed. These things also we should observe in that particular live ritual contexts. So the role of caste, the influence of caste is very high in our fieldwork contexts, in Indian kind of folklore research. That is very important, and we should remember that. And then we talked about the calendar. That's over, and we have prepared a ritual calendar and calendar of our fieldwork programs in various places. That is over. And then the important point is preparing a questionnaire. How to prepare a questionnaire, and actually whether a questionnaire is needed or not. That is important. But to any researchers, maybe a beginner, maybe a PhD student, a MPhil student, or a seasoned or experienced professor, so a questionnaire is needed. Making a questionnaire, using the questionnaire is not for questionnaire sake, is not for a formal function. It's not formality, not at all a formality, but it is essential to have a questionnaire. Questionnaire means it's not a mechanical way that this research method says to prepare a questionnaire, and because this research method suggests me to prepare a questionnaire, that's why I'm preparing this questionnaire and I'm using it. It's not like that. The making a questionnaire means to have a proper bunch of questions in your mind before you set out to the fieldwork. That's important. That means, let us say, I want to say that one researcher is about to go to do some fieldwork on some puppet theatre. Let us say, we'll take one example, that a researcher is about to go to work on a puppet theatre, he or she may shortly go to that field work to talk to the puppeteers, to document a puppet show, and then what kind of questions he should have in his mind. Then he has to, at first he has to make some questions within his mind. Okay, I am going to field to do some research on puppet theatre. What is the name of puppet theatre in that particular language area? What is the name particularly? And whether any particular caste is performing that particular puppet theatre, or any person from any caste can learn puppet show and perform, whether it is possible or not, that's another question. Whether both male and female perform the puppet show or not, that's another question. What is the process of learning puppet show? How young generation learn puppet show? Whether any schools are there, whether any particular teachers are there, or the performers or the learners or the new generation learn the puppet show while performing the puppet show itself. Whether they join with the senior artists, how they join with the senior artists, how they learn within the performance tradition, within the performance contexts. What is the actual school? How the music is conducted in the puppet show? What are the instruments? What are the ragas? What are the talas that are used in the performance? Whether music is needed for all the contexts in the performance. When the instruments are played, when the male singers sing, when the female singers sing, when the background narration is given, why the background narration is needed, how the light is projected, how the curtain is prepared, how the puppets are prepared, what is the leather, how the leather is tanned, whether the tanned leather is purchased or the performers themselves they prepare the leather. Any rituals are associated with the preparation of the puppets, and how the godly images in the puppet, how the godly images like Rama is there, Sita is there, and Ravana is there, some other characters are there, and what kind of leather, whether any special leather is used to Rama character, to prepare Rama character on the puppet, whether any special leather is used to prepare the puppet of Sita, or the same leather is used to Ravana's puppet, and at what time the puppet show begins, at what time it ends, to whom it is performed, who are the regular audience in a village, what kind of performance in a year they are getting. These are very big bundle of questions are there in the mind of researcher. Then what he has to do? This is the plethora of questions, plethora of very big a battery of questions. Then such questions are there in his mind. Then what he should do? Then he has to prepare one by one, according to one chronological order. Whatever a question comes to his mind, he has to prepare. He or she has to prepare that question. He has to take note of that question in a notebook at first. Then he go on making all the questions in the notebook. Then what to do? Then look at the questions. There are 25 questions or 50 questions or 40 questions. Then what he should do, what he or she should do. Then all these questions, we have to find whether a chronological order is there among all these questions. If there is an order, which question is first, which is second, which is in the next, which is the next, which is the last question, where we have to stop. Then all these questions should be kept in a chronological order by giving a number. Then the questionnaire is ready. Then the preparation of questionnaire to each performance tradition, each ritual tradition may be different one. then we have to keep it in mind that whether this questionnaire, the structure of this questionnaire is fit to any other kind of performance or not. It may not be. It may not be. So, depending upon the subject, whether it is literature, fixed genres like proverbs or riddles, or myths, epics, all these things should keep it. We have to keep it in mind that these are the performances. Then we have to make questions according to that particular social context, depending upon the performing casts of the audience, or patronizers who are patronizing that one. Keeping all this in mind, we have to make some questions. Generally, these questions are born in the mind of researchers in the beginning time itself. Then, what to do with this questionnaire? You have prepared a questionnaire, and the questionnaire is composed in your laptop, and we got a printout. The questionnaire may be of 1 page or 2 pages or 3 pages. If the questions are less, I think try to put all the questions in 1 page. All the questions. I think there may be some appendical kind of questions to one question. One primary question may be there. One primary question may be there. There are some kind of secondary questions which are related to that primary question. The context, the interview context itself suggests you to pose another question which is related to this primary question. The context itself demands you to ask some other questions. It will be there. But still, keep the number of questions to fit into 1 page. That will be very easy. In exceptional condition, you can go for second page. On the other side of the page, same paper. That will be very easy. But how do you use this questionnaire? Okay, you have executing the plans, and you went into the field, you went into a village, you took the help of some contact persons, and you met the artists, you met the informants, or some other general public. But we cannot immediately jump, we cannot immediately resort to the questions or interviews, all these things. That may not be possible. We need to have some rapport and some motivation to the performers, and then maybe the next day morning you can go to the performers and you can ask them some questions. Then even in that context, you may have some assistants on your side. Even a PhD scholar may have a friend on his side to help him. Then your friend can carry some of your maybe your bag or maybe your camera, all these things. Then you want to know something with the performers and you want to talk to the performers. You need not say formal interview. Generally, in an informal way, you can talk. At first, in an informal way, you can talk to the performers. Then, can you open your paper of your questionnaire? Don't do that. I never did it. In my fieldwork, the long fieldwork experience, every year from 10 days to 1 month, I am working in field on various my research works. I am quite aware of what is my attitude, how I am talking to the people, general people, how I am looking to the general people. I am very much conscious about it. I know that. Then I never opened the questionnaire copy in the presence of a performer. I suggest that no researcher, maybe senior, maybe junior, or maybe a PhD worker, PhD student, do not open your questionnaire paper in the presence of the performer, the informant. It should be very informal one. The performer should feel that he is not poking in an unwanted way. He is not being poked. In an unwanted way. He should not offend it. The performer, the informants should not offend by our questions. It should be very informal way to talking to the performers in an informal way. We do that. We do that. And do not directly start with a question that, sir, what is your name? Don't do this. What is your name? What is your age? What is your caste? These questions, of course, you need to get this information. What is the age of the person? What is the caste of the person? What is the name of the person? All this information, all this data, you need this data. But how to get it? Don't try to get this basic information directly with the first question itself. And if you raise this first question, this your age, what is your caste, what is your, all these things, if you raise with this question, the informant, the artist will be frozen. They feels a little aback, and he doesn't feel very comfortable to talk to you, to answer all your questions. Very informal way you can start with. You need not start with the question number 1, question number 2, question number 3. You need not follow this order at all. You keep it all your questions in your mind and start with the question in an informal way. In somewhere in the middle of your interview, you can ask, sir, what is your name? Can you tell your name and how old you may be? You are looking very young, but what is your actual age, sir? You can ask in such a way, in a subtle way, all these questions. But do not start with the question of what's your name, what's your age, all these things. It's not a good way. It's not a better way to talk to folk artists. And then sometimes what happens, the performers, they go on narrating some of their experiences, long experiences. Sometimes you feel that the material, the data which is narrating by the performer may not be immediately relating to your research work. The expressions from the performer, from the artist, may not directly related to your question, may not directly related to your research topic. But do not stop him abruptly, immediately. Don't stop. We need not necessarily immediately stop. No sir, I don't want this information. Don't say that. You can divert him in a subtle way to your topic in a skillful way. That's needed. Then he may be, we are asking a question about his performance tradition, how makeup is prepared, how colors are prepared to prepare themselves, how their costume are prepared. You are asking that question, but the narrator may be telling something else. Something to say the cloth is made in some of the villages. Some other caste people make this cloth, and he may be going on telling something else which is not directly related to your question. Even then, do not stop him. In a skillful way, we have to get back the narrator towards the direction which we need, which we are exactly we need. That is one skill. That is one skill of interviews. That's one skill of interviews. But at this moment, we are looking at the structure of the questionnaire and how to prepare a questionnaire, how to use that questionnaire, whether we can open the questionnaire in the presence of the interview, in the interview context, in the presence of the general public, or while talking to the performers in an informal way. Then on the way of asking questions, then when should we open our apparatus? How to document it? This is another issue. But today in this part, what else we are asking, what else we are knowing, what else we are looking at is so next issue is documentation. Then we are coming in a linear order, that planning, preliminary plan, intense plan, getting contacts, making contacts, contacting the targeted people, performers. All this is over. You are in the field situation. when you are in the field situation, we talked about the preparation of this questionnaire, how to use the questionnaire, how to follow the order of the questions, how to make the interviewee as comfortable, what are the things should avoid in the field context. All these things we discussed in this session. In the next session, in the sequence, we'll go to the next level and what equipment we need in the field context, what equipment we should carry, how to prepare them, and how to use them, and how to document, when to document, and whether insufficient documentation was done, whether documentation is not at all possible, then what to do. Such things we'll discuss in the next session. Till then, we'll take a virama, we'll take a break. So have a good time. Thank you.